really is with what we ask our D-line to do in a lot of our defenses. It counts on them really doing their job, right? Like really being dialed into their technique, their focus. We ask our D-line to do a lot with popping with pulls and canceling out some gaps at times and mixing it up, and which allows our backers, that second back end, to play really free. I think the biggest thing within our back end, those guys got to be able to play sideline to sideline. They got to be able to do it all, from zone drops, playing man, to pressure. At times, maybe we have to go play deep half or deep third. So we want to be really multiple with them. And then you get to the back end, we're going to ask our DBs to play a lot of man. Our versions of quarters and our pressures, we play a lot of man. And at times, they're not going to have a lot of help. And so we got to teach them, obviously what techniques and tools to use. Where is my help? Is it inside, outside? Is there no one deep, or is there someone in the middle of the field? And so really, from a holistic defensive perspective, the guys got to be dynamic and be really multiple in what they're able to do. And so look forward to that. You'll see a lot of what we do, from one high to two high to man pressures, zone pressures, everything. And so we have a way of teaching that and a teaching progression that simplifies it for the guys. A lot of same as teaching, but we're going to be very multiple in what we do, and got to stop the run, make teams throw it, and when they want to throw it, got to find ways to keep the ball in front of us and go make plays and get the ball back to our offense. So
you mentioned Coach Roll. He told us on Wednesday morning he wants his group to throw haymakers, quote. And like you said, starts on the ground, starts up front and all that. But what's your version of throwing haymakers as a defense look like?
I think that comes from a consistent basis, like doing every single day, showing that we're going to be the most physical defense and we're going to win my one-on-one. Something I was actually just talking to the D staff about the other day, and it's not maybe something I've talked about previously. I've talked about this. We talk about having great body language. We talk about our collective best. Our standard is how do we look, sound, feel. And one of those things, how do we look, is we got to have great body language, whether you win a rep or you lose a rep. And something I was talking about with that, when you talk about like physicality or throwing haymakers, is whether you win a rep or you lose a rep, you pop back up and you let them know you're going to be bringing it the next play. And so I would say it's a consistent thing. You're not always going to be perfect. You're not going to win every single battle, but you better have the mindset that you're going to win the next one, and that there's a demeanor that for 4 quarters or whatever that may look like, we're going to make that team quit, and that's not just, a cliche statement. I've been a part of defenses that have done that to teams and really have taken over, and been a part of defenses that have been the best in the country when we were at South Dakota State for 3 years in a row. So how that feels, and what it takes to get to that point.
How is it with a staff that's largely intact defensive-wise, that you guys came together?
Yeah.
How has that kind of helped the transition process, like this time of the year, where you're not totally reinventing everything here? You got the system and you're ready to roll.
For sure. It's definitely different. Our side of the ball to the offense, who's coming together a little bit. They've definitely been in more staff meetings than we have over the last month. It just makes sense, trying to get on the same page, and they're doing a great job. I can already see. I see the offense out there doing walkthroughs. It's like, it's impressive how they're already doing it and organized. And but yeah, it's been nice because we've been able to really hammer out recruiting maybe a little bit more, or focus on adjustments, if that makes sense. So when we're meeting, it's not necessarily to cover the basic scheme and teach people what we're doing within the staff room. It's to how can we're doing self-scout, and we're looking at already making adjustments and how we can get better. And that's something that's been why I believe we've had a lot of success on defense over the last few years as a D staff, being intact, is being open and open to new ideas and creative, and hearing things through. I believe in what we do on defense wholeheartedly, but there's a lot of good things out there, and so to just stay stagnant and just believe in this is what we do, I think, my opinion is not the way to go about it. You always need to develop and learn and grow, and so bringing Coach Watson in, from Toledo, they were a similar style of defense, but definitely different in a lot of ways. And so we've had some really good conversations, so not only are we making adjustments within our group that's been together, now with him involved, we have some more ideas flowing, and some of those are like, oh man, that's going to be a stretch, we'll try and figure it out maybe. And some of them are like, oh man, that actually solves an issue we've been trying to figure out for 3 years if all we needed was a new perspective, right? And so that's what's been really exciting. That's why Coach Rogers was so adamant about bringing him in, and he's fit right into the group. We're a laid back group. We're going to hold our guys accountable. We'll have a lot of energy at practice, and I know the offense will too, so there'll be some battles out there for sure. But it's been awesome to have him just kind of kind of join right in, and we have a lot of joy and laughter, and we're always playing music in the D staff room. And yesterday was a great day of making adjustments to our pressure systems and some of the things we do in our quarters and getting on the board a ton. And it's been a lot of fun being able to do those things versus just teach other coaches our base defense.
The 3-3-5 that Haycock brought here, well, it started like year 2 or 3, whatever it was kind of a response to like the air raid and all that, Big 12 at the time. Have you looked too much at what the rest of the Big 12's doing and kind of how your approach is going to match up against them?
Yeah, for sure. Our back room, it's not just, us 5 obviously that are part of the D staff. We got our graduate assistants and our analysts that work with us. There's 4 more guys a part of, obviously, the D staff, and right now they're running some reports on the Big 12 and personnels, formations, top plays. What is the general, scheme that we're going to see? And I think, back when that was created or developed, everyone was like, "Oh man, this is, that was great for the air raid and all that stuff." And not that it isn't still. The conference was different then than I think it's kind of trending, maybe because of how the Big 12 changed and adding some teams like Utah or whoever right back to this conference. When you look at it, there is a lot of 11 and 12 personnel just looking at last year's stuff. And so mainly 11, but it's not just like, spread 10 personnel everywhere, right? There are tight ends being a lot more involved like there is at all levels, and how the offenses are kind of going back to that direction and using those tough tight end positions when you get those dynamic bodies for tougher defense. And so I feel like our scheme will fit really well to what the conference looks like. Stopping the run, being multiple, manipulating what they're doing. I would say for me personally, going against just true spread, that's tough. It's tough for everyone, right? That's why you go to the 3-3-5, all those things. And so, over the last 2 years, we have developed a little bit of a 3-down system within what we do that can allow us to gain an extra defender and pass or mix things up with sim pressures. And so, we did that last year at Washington State, and so we look to kind of evolve that when we need to. But I feel that our scheme and what we're doing and our multiplicity is like, we have a lot in the tool bank in terms of like within our scheme. Not everything's going to be in week to week, so we feel good about having answers. The last couple of years has really prepared. Incarnate Word, Ole Miss, multiple teams over the last few years when we were at South Dakota State or Washington State as a D staff challenged us to have to branch out and create some new ideas and do some new things because Incarnate Word, Ole Miss, up tempo, spread, all of those things. So it's not like we haven't faced that, and it's not like we haven't had success versus those teams either. So,
what's one word to describe your football philosophy?
I said it earlier, one or 2 words. I'm going to do a little bit more than that. I'm going to do rule-based and sound, and then violent. Right? Rule-based and sound, and then violent. Right? I talked about a little bit ago being rule-based and sound, disguised for success, and then relentless pursuit with violent finishes. That's our philosophy. From front to back, we're going to be sound, limit explosive plays. We're going to manipulate the offense. Don't let them manipulate us. They're obviously trying to create conflict defenders and do all those things. Our job is to see that and create disguises and do things and put people in positions that might look really weird. Like, well, what is the will linebacker doing out there pressing the single X? But we're going to do some things that may allow us to manipulate them and not allow them to attack us. And then swarming the ball with violent finishes and getting the ball out. That's going to allow us to create some turnovers and get the ball back to our offense and, hopefully have some big momentum plays. And when you do that consistently, play after play after play, which takes time to build that up, through spring and summer, which we'll get to that point, you can really make an offense either quit, feel it, or make it a rough 4 quarters for them. So.
How hands-on do you or the rest of the defensive staff get when it comes to instruction or demonstrating to your players?
Oh yeah, it's important for us to be in shape now. We got to be living in that weight room and doing cardio. You should see us this morning. The group of us were down there doing our thing because we're pretty hands-on. Like, I want to be able to, not as good as them and definitely tweak a hammy at times here or there, but I want to be able to replicate what I'm showing. I think it was kind of funny the other weekend I was out there with the linebackers for the first time trying to demonstrate some stuff. They're like, "Okay, coach, there we go." And so it was funny. I don't want to have to just instruct it. I want to be able to show them to an extent of what it is. And so we're really hands-on. You'll see us at practice between team reps running out there, coaching the guys up, running back out, running back on. Like, we're very hands-on. We want the guys to get instant feedback. That's something that Coach Rogers really preaches, is instant feedback for the guys. Yeah, you have the film, but let's get it corrected in the moment as well so they can adjust with whether it's the next play or whatever that may be. And so so we're really hands-on, and we have a lot of fun with it. If you're around much at practice or all those things, you'll see a good camaraderie and joy from the defensive side of the ball for sure.
You were, I think I was looking at your bio, and it was it 2018? You were a grad assistant somewhere, right? Were you like?
So-
and you're a Power 4 defensive coordinator now. I mean, what's this rapid rise been like for you, and maybe what are some things you've kind of fallen back on throughout it?
I would say this. In 2018, I was a high school coach at Bellevue West
That's
in
what
Omaha.
it was. Okay.
And then
in Omaha.
in 2021, I was a graduate assistant at Washington State.
Okay.
And so that was kind of my timeline from high school coach, 3 years of being a graduate assistant. 2022 was my first full-time job at South Dakota State. And so I've been blessed with really good people to surround myself with and learn. Being at South Dakota State, going to Washington State, being with Coach Rolovich and then Coach Dickert and that staff, learned a lot of things in my time there through a tough time with COVID and a lot of things that happened. I grew a ton in those 2 years when I was there. Going back to South Dakota State with a culture that was there and a staff. I've just been blessed with, fortunate timing with things, but also being in a position to take advantage of those opportunities. Coach Rogers has given me a lot of opportunities in my career as a player. He was my linebackers coach. My freshman year was his first full-time coaching job at South Dakota State, and so we've been together a long time. But he asked me to get into college coaching when I was at Bellevue West in Omaha. He asked me to come back to South Dakota State as a safeties coach. He's obviously entrusted me after that first year to be the defensive coordinator and brought me with. And so at the end of the day, I think if you just, what I would accredit, whatever you want to call it, a fast rise is I think if you treat people the right way, and you think about other people, and you're a selfless human being and you're trying to empower the people around you, it only elevates you up. So something we talk about with our guys all the time is empowerment. And I always say if you're doing everything right but you're by yourself, you're not quite there yet, right? Bring the people with you. And so I say one thing that I try to do is empower the people around me, and the same thing I would say is if you empower the people around you, they're going to help you rise, and it's been fun to do that with this group, and I'm just fortunate, to be here with these guys and for the opportunities I've had and trying to make the most of them.
How have you seen Jimmy change from being a first-year position coach to now being a Power 4 head coach?
There's a lot that has changed.
Yeah.
I joke around with these guys. I'm like, you guys think he's intense now? I was like, do you know what I went through when I was a freshman with this guy? I couldn't even walk half the time. But at the end of the day, he's grown so much. He's always, one thing that hasn't changed is his dedication, his care and commitment to helping players grow and develop. That hasn't changed at all. Maybe his beliefs or philosophies or how he does that has changed, but that mindset of making you the best possible version of yourself has always been consistent. And so that's what's been really cool, to try and feed off of him and take that into my own coaching philosophy and beliefs is got to believe in the player and you got to help them become the best version of themselves. And sometimes that's going to be tough for them to hear and do what's asked of them. But that's been really cool to see consistency. But in the growth piece, he's evolved in every way that you would want a coach to evolve to get where he's at now. You talk about, ask me about how I have risen up in this profession. Look at him, right? And so it's been really cool to kind of be with him and see him grow as a person and see his philosophies and stuff change maybe a little bit and how he's broadened his perspective on certain things. It's been fun.
With his defensive background and obviously with his continuity and familiarity with you guys as a staff, how involved is he in what you guys are doing right now and then once we get into spring and fall?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing at times that that he misses is the X's and O's, because as a head coach you have a lot of responsibility, and so I think the coolest, the biggest thing is he's got a lot of things going on, so he's probably not as involved as he would like to be honest. But there's always consistent communication with him in terms of what we're doing, like whether that's on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, or I go to ask him, hey, we talked about this today, are you good with this? We're looking at making this change. Or like yesterday, we've been meeting all week and we've had a lot of conversations that have come up to make adjustments, and he popped in yesterday, sits down, he's like, hey, what's going on? Oh, let's talk about this. And he's whether he's been with he hasn't been in a meeting for a month, he's able to jump right back in and understand what we're doing, maybe add some really good perspective or thoughts or ideas, or challenge us a little bit, or be like, I don't know if I like that, right? So he's maybe not as involved on a consistent daily basis, but there's always still that mentorship and be like, hey coach, what do you think about this? This is what we're looking to do, and making sure, he feels good about it too. So, as we go through, big thing for him, I think you asked about the growth. Another perspective is him getting involved with the offense too. Like he's grown so much, learning about the offense and trying to help them game plan, which I think is huge, right? You always see offensive coaches hiring a defensive-minded guy to their side of the ball. Well, that's been him, right? So over the last couple of years, he's been huge in doing that for the offense, which has been really, I think, fun for him as well to kind of take what we do on defense and apply it in a different way, right? Not game planning an offense, but hey, here's how you can attack a defense, which has been a big part of his role. So.
You talked a little earlier about Ross's role and how you guys have been doing self-scout. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the benefit of that, of having some new eyes on what you guys are doing?
For sure. I think sometimes you go through something and it could be so simple, but just because you've done it for so long and you've had a group that's been together, you just don't see it that way, and it just takes a new set of eyes to be like, well, why don't you do this? And it's like, oh man, how did we not think about that, right? But you just have these rules and these things that you follow, and so that's been huge, and that's happened so many times. And sometimes I don't know if we can do that within our scheme. That is maybe too different. I try and do a good job of really thinking and reflecting on can we incorporate this, because they had a lot of success with what they did, and so there is a balance of trying to. No, we believe in what we do, but take some of those ideas and implement it. And he's done a really good job of, at times being like, no, this isn't going to, this is just too far-fetched, or being like, I think we can do this and I believe in this. And there's been some really good conversations, whether that's from the back end to the front, again, it's very zero egos in the defensive staff room. Everyone can talk. I don't care if you're the graduate assistant, an analyst, myself. Everyone is open to talk, and everyone does. From where we were 2 years ago to now, our graduate assistants, Peyton Schaefer, is always talking, bringing ideas, or saying things and sharing things with me. He's someone that I coached, Rogers coached at South Dakota State. He's been with us, and that's what I want it to be. There's no bad ideas. There's no dumb thoughts. And if you're open to learning and hearing things out, you can make some really cool things work. And so I'm excited because, like I said, just yesterday, combining some of the main stuff we do with a couple thoughts from Ross over the last week, and really thinking about how can we do this, kind of maybe came to fruition on a couple opportunities and things that we can apply that'll make us a lot better on defense.
I heard a story about a 2013 game at SDSU against Eastern Washington. It was in the playoffs, and Coach Stiegelmeier, instead of giving the kind of pregame speech, he let Jimmy give the speech. Do you remember that moment in that speech and what was talked about?
Yeah, so we were at Eastern Washington.
Okay.
Playing Cooper Cup, the Super Bowl champ. Got us on that day, that's for sure. But I don't remember specifically what Coach Rogers said, but I can say this, is when he speaks, people listen, right? When he speaks, there's passion and there's intention with what he's saying. And so I can only think and reflect back, and I can just put myself probably in a situation where I've heard a lot of his talks as a player and as a coach, where when he speaks, you listen and you feel something inside of you because of his passion. And so I would say the locker room was pretty motivated, I'm sure. And so at the end of the day, did we get the win that day? We didn't. But if someone's going to try and motivate you and get the most out of you, it's definitely going to be him.
How different does a Jimmy Rogers talk sound than a John Stiegelmeier talk?
Definitely different for a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot of ways. Different vocabulary being used. Some words maybe that will never be used by Coach Stig back in the day, but doesn't mean it's not the same message. Coach Rogers was with Coach Stiegelmeier for a long time. Anytime he talks about him, he gets pretty emotional. It's because of the impact that he had on his life, just like a big impact he had on my life as well. So they might say things differently, but I love hearing when, in a meeting or whatever, and I'm like, other people might not know, but that was a Stig thing, right? He might say it a little bit different, and you can just tell, that's something that was a core belief that he learned from Coach Stig, and so, which is fun to see. Because obviously I love Coach Stig, and it's fun to see some of the things carried on.
That's
what
cool.
is the competitiveness that you're projecting this is going to be like with your defense going against Roll's offense and practice in the coming weeks and months, and between the different position coaches here? What is it going to be like in practice?
It's going to be intense. I said it from the moment I heard that Coach Rogers was going that way to hire Coach Roll. obviously there's your own personal things of South Dakota State and North Dakota State and some battles. I was a player when he was a coach. I was a coach when he was a coach. We went against each other in 2023. That day got the best of him a little bit. Sorry, Coach Roll, but at the end of the day, it's going to be competitive. And all in good spirits. But I would say that. We got to take care of each other on offense and defense, but it's going to be physical. And there's, at the end of the day, we're going to, as a defense, try and impose our will, and they're going to try and do the same thing. And so when they're running that A-gap power, we're going to stop it and make them do something else. I'm just kidding. But it'll be competitive, and it'll all be come from a good place. But that's to be the best, which is what we're striving to be. That is the standard, for us to be the best defense in the country. Well, it's going to take a lot of competitive spirit, and when you lose a rep, you got to have some good body language and let them know that they're not going to get you the next play. So I'm excited for that, and I know our guys will have that, but if it's not quite there, we'll make sure it's there as a staff. So
you talk a lot about dictating the terms as a defense. How much of that is scheme, and how much of that is just a mindset?
I think a lot of it is, schemes. When you talk about manipulating, our job as a staff is to figure out what are they trying to do to us. And every team's different. Like, what is their main goal? Ole Miss was trying to,